The seal of the Massachusetts Bay Colony is a native person saying, "Come over and help us." This was the way the Puritans imagined the Indians were receiving them, as coming to help them to salvation. Now, most of the native people in the Boston area had died of a plague in the 16 teens and smallpox in the early 1630s. The largest populations of native people were to the south and the west. And in central Connecticut, the area that's between today's Thames River and Connecticut River were the Pequots, one of the largest groups left in southern New England. And the Dutch were interested in trade along Long Island Sound and up into the Connecticut River Valley. In fact, the Dutch had started a trading post just south of what is today Hartford. At the same time, the Plymouth colonists had an interest in starting a trading post on the Connecticut River. And in the mid-1630s, a disaffected group from the Massachusetts Bay Colony, led by Thomas Hooker, leaves Dorchester for Connecticut, and they established their colony about a mile north of the Dutch colony, or the Dutch trading post on the Connecticut River. So now you have three different groups of Europeans vying for interest in the Connecticut River Valley, and you also have the Pequots who are there. They've been there from time immemorial, and a conflict ensues, a real conflict over land and control of the Connecticut River Valley and what then was called the Pequot River, today is called the Thames River. The Pequots had two big forts on either side of their territory, one roughly where New London is, the other closer to the Connecticut River, and then in between there were several thousand Pequots living here. And the origins of the war are somewhat complicated and confusing. Nonetheless, in the mid-1630s, Massachusetts goes to war against the Pequots, invading the Pequot territory and devastating the Pequots, attacking their forts, burning their forts, killing their women and children, selling them into slavery. It's one of the most devastating wars in the history of the country, certainly the most devastating for the native people in 1637. This war begins with trade, or concerns about trade, concerns about land, concerns about a dynastic dispute among the Pequots and the Mohegans, and ends with the real devastation of the Pequots in the mid-1630s, at the end of the 1630s. And this is a tragedy for the Pequots. It opens up Connecticut to settlement from Boston. John Winthrop's son goes off to England and negotiates to get the charter for a colony at the mouth of the Connecticut River, the area where Saybrook is. And up the river, there is a small colony near Hartford. Again, disaffected people from Boston are moving out into this area with the devastation of the Pequots. It causes some questioning here about what exactly we are doing. Remember, our reason for coming was to help these people and bring them to Christianity. The Reverend John Eliot, the minister of the church in Roxbury, genuinely concerned about what's happened to the Pequots, what we have done, and have we betrayed our mission, decides it's imperative that he start converting the native people to Christianity. So Eliot begins translating the Bible into the Massachusetts dialect, and the first Bible printed in North America is printed on the press brought over to Cambridge in the late 1630s, and it's printed actually in the Massachusetts dialect, so that Eliot he transliterates the Massachusetts language, applying letters to the sounds so that it can be read aloud and the native people will understand it. And Harvard College has begun to train Indian ministers so that the native people can embrace Christianity. And a big question for us might be, why would the native people want to embrace Christianity, particularly since the Christians who have come over to help them have wound up killing them? And the answer really is that smallpox is such a devastating illness that since the arrival of the Europeans, what the Indians have known is death. And the old ways, the old religious understandings haven't been working. And what the Christians offer is salvation. The Christians offer eternal life. And that is something that is very appealing. So Eliot begins the process of translating the Bible and converting native people, and also establishing towns for native people who have embraced Christianity. They're called praying towns. Places like Punkapog, just southwest of Boston, today the town of Canton, established as an Indian praying town, or Nanantum on the banks of the Charles River. Again, communities of Indians who have embraced Christianity and are also coming to live the way the European Christians are living. So you have this attempt by the English to begin Christianizing the Indians, and those who haven't accepted Christianity, as I said, the Pequots are either killed or they are sent off into slavery in the West Indies, and you have the Europeans trying to make some sense of this or justify what they have done. Now, for many years, the thinking was that the Pequots had been exterminated in the 1630s in this devastating war, and the Pequots certainly are minimized as a force in Connecticut. You may know that in the 19th century, Herman Melville writes one of the great novels, Moby Dick, about a quest for a whale and other things, and he calls the whale ship the Pequot, and it evokes this vanished people of central Connecticut. Now, we know, of course, the Pequots weren't eliminated completely. In the 20th century, the Pequots come back, and in the 1980s, the Pequots actually reoccupy, or the descendants of the Pequots reoccupy the tract of land that had been the center of the Pequot Nation, and now they run one of the largest casinos in North America at Foxwoods. Again, the Pequots have come back in a big way in the 20th and 21st century, having been all but eliminated in the 1630s during this first devastating wave of European colonization, as the Pequots were one of the real threats to the Europeans, or to European hegemony in New England. And the Puritans go to war against the Pequots, creating, in one way, a Puritan identity and a Puritan opposition to the native people, but also causing the Puritans to question why they were here and if they were, in fact, betraying their mission. So the Pequot War, devastating, bloody war, that gives rise to institutions like Harvard, attempts to Christianize the Indians, and in the long range of history, questions about the identity of the people who have come here, and well as the people who were here to begin with.